Terry Barber is a best-selling author and founder of Lighthouse Catholic Media. Jesse Romero is a retired law enforcement officer, a former kickboxing champion with a master's degree in theology. And together, they share a passion for evangelization and PhDs in common sense. You're listening to The Terry and Jesse Show. To join the show, call 888-526-2151. Here's Terry and Jesse.
Welcome to The Terry and Jesse Show. Jesse will be back on Monday. I have a special guest this afternoon with you. His name is Dr. Ed Mazza. We're going to be talking about the history of Islam from his perspective. He's a PhD in history. He's got some great material, so a little later on we'll do that. But first of all, we've got some soul food. In other words, the Bible. We try to read each day from the Gospel of Mass and then give a little common sense commentary. For the reading for today's is Mark chapter 3, verse 13 to 19. Jesus went up to the mountain, summoned those whom he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed the 12 whom he had named apostles, that they might be with him, and he might send them forth to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. He appointed the 12, Simon, who he named Peter, James, son of Zebedee, the John, the brother of James, who he named Boanerges. Then, that is, sons of thunder. I love that. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, the Simon and Carnean, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed them. Now, here's a little commentary on this, taken from the Navarre Bible. I love it. 12 chosen by Jesus received specific vocations to people to be sent out, which is the word apostle. That's what it means. Jesus chooses them for a mission, which he will give them later, and had to enable them to perform their mission. He gives them the part of his power. The fact that he chooses the 12 is very significant, okay? That is the same number of the 12 patriarchs of Israel, and the apostles represent the new people of God, the church founded by Jesus Christ. Jesus sought in his own way to emphasize the continuity that exists between the Old and the New Testament. The 12 are the pillars of which Christ builds his church. Their mission to make disciples of the Lord, to teach all nations, to sanctify, govern the believers. The very distinction of them as 12 shows that they form a well-defined and complete group. Therefore, after Judas' death, Matthias is elected to take his place. Did you notice that Matthew was the name of the first of the apostles? Why was that? Because he's the head. It goes right back to the biblical teachings on that. And I want to, before I go to Fulton Sheen, I want to tell you a beautiful story about Pope John Paul II the Great. I call him Saint Pope John Paul II. If you probably never heard this story, you won't ever hear it anywhere else, but in 1988, shortly after the Holy Father returned from a visit to Berlin, Germany, this Swiss guard, who was their job was to protect the Holy Father, he told this story. He was standing guard outside the private apartment when the future Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, his name's Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, stopped for a visit. Check this out. The Cardinal had been with the Pope in Berlin, where less than friendly crowds greeted them. The activists staged a huge protest and threw what? Eggs and tomatoes at the Pope-mobile as it drove by. Do you remember that? I sure do. Some of you younger people maybe didn't. But while Cardinal Ratzinger waited for admittance to the room, I began to chat with him. This is a story you want to tell tonight at dinner. He's a gentle man, but friendly and sincere. That particular day, I was curious about the reception Berlin had given the two and asked what it was like to be attacked by them. Does it bother you to have eggs and tomatoes thrown at you? Does it hurt your feelings? The guard is asking the Cardinal Ratzinger. He asked. He smiled, the future Pope. He smiled in his gentle way and explained, no, because they weren't throwing him at Joseph Ratzinger and Karol Wojtyla. If the two of us have never been involved in the Christian message, they wouldn't throw anything at us. The tomatoes and the insults are intended for what we stand for and what we proclaim. Remember that next time you get persecuted. It is the Christian faith which has been handed down to us through the centuries. Check this out for 2018. He says, we can't change that because it's difficult to live up to or it doesn't fit the current cultural trends. Here's what the future Pope said: "We should proclaim it in love, but it is not ours to change." I say that today because there are some people who want to change the moral teachings of the church on homosexuality and other teachings that are not consistent with what the Bible and the church has taught for thousands of years. Why do I share that with you? Because I think what that story says to you and I, expect persecution if you're a Christian today. Expect people to say you're an old fuddy-duddy. Expect people to say, hey, why don't you wake up? This is 2018. You're not relevant to the situation. Well, you know what? I tell them the Christian faith message is always relevant to our culture because truth doesn't change, and truth has a name, Jesus Christ. All right, let's bring the smartest man in the room, Fulton J Sheen. Let's bring him in. Full Sheen ahead. I bet you're glad we got that whistle back, huh? Yep, we did. And Fulton Sheen is the man. Just so you know, I have a real love for him because back 40 years ago when he died in 79, 39 years ago, I went to his funeral, and I have been promoting Bishop Sheen's Life is Worth Living, which is going to be on our new radio, internet radio. We'll be putting Bishop Sheen on, Scott Hahn, Tim Staples, all these great guys. But Bishop Sheen touched me so powerfully that that's what got me going in promoting cassette tapes back in the 70s, and over 30 million recordings over the 40 years I've been involved have gone out through Lighthouse, now Augustine Institute. And so Fulton Sheen will always be part of my life. But here's something very, very controversial that he has to say. And this was said in the 1950s. And it's regarding the atomic bomb. Since so much is going on with North Korea and we're trying to stop any kind of a atomic bomb. You know, it's terrible that certain people have these bombs because it's just horrible. But here's what Bishop Sheen says: the atomic bomb in the hands of St. Francis of Assisi would be less harmful than a pistol in the hand of a thug. What makes the bomb dangerous is not the energy it contains, but the man who uses it. And I say, Bishop Sheen, well said. I think that that's continued to be true today. I mean, I wouldn't want North Korea to have an atomic bomb. Last time I looked, we've had the atomic bomb since World War II, and we haven't used it on anyone, okay? So it depends on, that's the point. And he also says atomic energy. Now, this is very controversial, but guess what? Bishop Sheen said it. It's written down in his book. I'm going to quote it. Atomic energy is a blessing, just like fire. Our worry is the atomic man. So that's our time with Bishop Sheen. And Bishop Sheen, thank you for your words of wisdom. I wanted to give you some good news here at the Terry and Jesse Show. After 40 years of being in the apostolic work of evangelization, I've noticed something about the Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska. And this is an interview with Bishop Conley, who's now the Bishop of Nebraska. And what the success is that they have been getting vocations to the priesthood for the last 40 years that's outnumbering large dioceses like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. And we're talking about a very, very small diocese. And just last year, they ordained 18 men to the priesthood. As a matter of fact, this is funny. They got so many priests, they're taking the men and sending them to other dioceses that are lacking. So let's find out what the bishop has to say in this interview, because it's powerful. And you can get it from the Catholic World Report, which is owned by Ignatius Press. It's a very reliable source. So Bishop James Conley of Lincoln has this interview. He says, the Diocese of Nebraska has been well known in recent years for its high number of priestly vocations. And he's speaking at the Focus Conference in Chicago. In this past year, they ordained 17 men in a 2-year period, outpacing many of the large dioceses. And the question is, well, what's the reason, Bishop? He says, well, I'll tell you, lots of grace, obviously, but I'll say one of the several things we can directly attribute this is to the Episcopal leadership. If you want to read a book that's very revealing, it's called A Battle for the American Church by Monsignor George Kelly. Still available. He says, where's the church going? Where its leaders take them. Prime example, Lincoln, Nebraska. He says several things can attribute it. We have basically had 40 years of good bishops. Two of my most immediate predecessors come to mind, Bishop Fabian Bruskovich. And just for your own information, he's the priest who brought Scott Hahn into the Catholic Church in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Not many people know that, but he was that bishop. Now, Bishop Flavian, who I met back in the 80s, World War II chaplain, great bishop. He was the bishop for 22 years, started in 1967. And if you remember, that was the time of the sexual revolution. That was the time when Vatican II just came out. And unfortunately, some of the people that were trying to explain Vatican II, what we call the spirit of Vatican II, which had nothing to do with Vatican II. But the bishop there, here's what he did. He continued to implement the true teachings of the post-conciliar years, and he did not waver when it came to the liturgy. And I tell you, I'm 61 years old. I remember right after the council, the experimentations that were going on, and anybody in the church can remember if they're honest. We had some crazy things going on, but not in their place. The revolution, it took many shapes and forms, not only the sexual revolution, but we had that liturgical revolution, and I'll say this, a doctrinal revolution, because everything was up for grabs. And maybe you're not old enough to remember that, but read, right after the Second Vatican Council, the catechesis went way down. People didn't know their faith, and I'm telling you, it was devastating. In Lincoln, they steered a steady course, and there was never any liturgical aberrations. Now, everywhere I go, unfortunately, I see the liturgical aberrations. People just do what they want to do. And unfortunately, that's sad, but that affects us. The way you worship is the way you believe. But the priests there were told very clearly that they would follow and celebrate the Mass the way the church wanted it to be celebrated. And there was no exception to that. As far as the teaching goes, in that diocese, listen to this. I'm just like, what? Did this really happen? The schools and the priests taught very sound doctrine. As a result, two things happened. One, vocation stayed steady. So even when they had the privilege of ordaining, I think, 25 men in the last 5 years in Lincoln, they still had the highest number of seminarians per Catholic in the country. Are you ready for this? They only have 96,000 Catholics. Shoot, there's more than that in my valley, in the San Gabriel Valley where I live. And they have 39 seminarians. There's a small diocese. So I got to tell you, and I'm going to continue with the article, but I remember in the 1980s, this is what happened. Our bishops in the country said, wait a minute, what's going on in Lincoln? Let's find out what they're doing to get so many vocations. So some bishops came in from the bishops' conference, and they said, what are you guys doing? Well, we have Eucharistic adoration. We have a Marian devotion. We have, discipline here. Nobody's just doing their own thing. And there's order here. So that's how we get vocations. We bring the kids to love Jesus and the Eucharist and all that. Well, unfortunately, those bishops who came said, well, I can see, that your success is from that, but we don't believe that's what the council is really asking everybody to do. What? Is this microphone on? Did they really say that? Yes. God have mercy on their souls. I pray for all my priests and bishops because, as I tell people, I'm not in management, I'm in sales. But we need to make sacrifices for our bishops and our priests so that they will have the courage to do the right thing. Because I'm going to be honest with you. Most men who are priests and bishops, they want to be liked. I think I'm a weirdo. I could care less if you like me. You know what? I have that personality that says, oh, well, you don't like me? Sorry, I'm just going to keep preaching. I'm not going to preach. I'm not going to tickle your ears. But unfortunately, that's a temptation for single men who are priests and bishops. That's at least what my friends have told me. Now, all these young priests who are in the parishes and schools and universities, they see examples of religious life. So the kids are seeing priests and sisters, and that's a good thing for young people to see. Bishop Flavian started a community of school sisters right in his own diocese to teach in the schools. What a great idea, Bishop. And I got to back up on that. Bishop Flavian in 1983, at a church teachers forum, I'll never forget, told me stories of World War II as a chaplain anointing men before they died. In the Battle of the Bulge, he was there. It's an amazing story. So this guy is the real deal. I mean, I was impressed. He started the Sisters. Are you ready for the title? Christ the King Sisters. And he elevated to a level of diocesan right, and they continue to teach even today. 4 of them are principals in the grade schools, and they teach in our grade schools. I have nothing against lay people teaching in Catholic schools, but I'm going to tell you something. The commitment of a full-habited nun in a school has a profound effect on people. That's all. In my opinion, I would love to see more religious teaching in the schools. They are going to bring forth vocations. They have 48 priests that are either administrators or teaching in the schools in a little diocese. What am I telling you? The religious are playing a big role in the Catholic education, and that's been very important to the success of vocations. To summarize, the liturgy, the worship, the people feel that when they come to Mass, they're in contact with the transcendent. What do I mean by that? We're not going to a party. We're going to a sacrifice. We're going to be at Calvary. How many Catholics really understand that? Now, if you're saying, Terry, nobody knows that. Well, they should know it because that's part of what we believe. Just open up your catechism of your Catholic Church when you open the section on the Mass. So when we're talking about this Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska, you have to ask yourself this question. We have a rich liturgy, right? We have catechesis. They're teaching them what the Mass is as a sacrifice. We're present at that one eternal sacrifice. They're getting an experience that Mass is something sacred, not just a meeting house like our Protestant brothers have. So when people discover it, then let's face it, they go right to Eucharistic adoration. And what I mean by that is so many vocations for the priests have told me, I know hundreds of priests, it's because they would spend time before Jesus and the Eucharist. And that is key to having vocations, in my humble opinion. For women, for religious, they have Eucharistic adoration chapels. And I love it. They say, turn off your cell phone. You're in the place of God. I love that. They have retreats for engagement encounter. They're working with families, the apostolates. Again, quiet Eucharistic adoration chapels all over the diocese. People in parishes whose marriages are falling apart, they go before their Lord and they're in shambles and they let our Lord speak to them. That's why Eucharistic adoration is so important. And I'm going to tell you, we used to have it, what we used to call 40 hours. Any of you old enough to remember 40 hours? My engineer remembers that, where each parish would take 40 hours continually with Eucharistic adoration. They bring a priest in to power preach on the real presence. We don't do that anymore. It's sad. Remember I said, I'm not in management, I'm in sales. And I can only do what I can do. But I just say this because the Lincoln Diocese is a model for all of us today to follow. And if you would like to get that article, all you have to do really is go to the Catholic World Report, and it's on their website. I also want to just mention one more thing. If you go to the Catholic Register, another good paper, they have an article about Bishop Athanasius Snyder. Some of you might remember I've interviewed Athanasius Snyder, the bishop, many years ago on the radio, and I'm working on getting him back. But he's the outspoken bishop that grew up in communism with Russia, and has a great story regarding the Holy Eucharist and how, as a young man, they were persecuted. They could only go to church like once a month, and it had to go on a long train ride all day to go find the priest for Mass. And he had a great reverence for the Eucharist, okay? And just blown away by his love for Jesus. His parents, they prayed their rosary, but they persevered under communism. And when he became a young man, he ended up joining the work of the Holy Angels Order, the Holy Cross Fathers. My good friend Father Wagner actually taught him his seminary days, who's the expert on the angels. If you were at our conference this weekend, we have a spiritual warfare conference. You want to get those CDs of the work of the angels, you can call 877-526-2151, and you can pick those CDs up because this is important for us. But Bishop Athanasius has a strong message to all of us today, and that message is that the message is this, that we need to have reverence for the Eucharist. Hey, I just got a note brought into the studio. Are you ready for this? This is unbelievable. President Trump spoke in person at the March for Life. Thanks be to God that he did that. You know, I know some people tell me, Terry, you and Jesse are always quoting President Trump when he's talking about pro-life issues. And why are you just speaking up so much? Well, the last time I looked, since Roe versus Wade in 1973, 60 million babies have been aborted in America. Okay? That's why Jesse and I continue to talk about pro-life, pro-family, because the way the family goes is the way the culture goes. So I just want to say kudos to our president. I'm going to be honest with you. I wish the last guy that was president, if he would have done that, I would have said, hey, hooray for President Barack Obama for speaking at the pro-life march. What? It didn't happen? No, that's fake news. This is real news. Trump spoke in person at the March for Life. If that doesn't give us pro-life people a message that we've got a president here in the Oval Office who's going to support the sanctity of life, wow, I'm so happy. You know, I'm standing up, as some of you can see on YouTube, but I would be jumping and hitting my head on the ceiling right now because it's nice to have a government, a head leader in our government, stand up for the little ones and not push them aside. So I just had to tell you that I'm excited to hear that. Now, I wanted to also, this is our fourth broadcast since we were taken off the radio on Relevant Radio. That's where we were. Many of you know that. Well, I'm going to tell you a fun story. Many of you probably don't know, but in 1985, I started putting Bishop Sheen on radio. I've been involved with Catholic radio when we only had 5 stations. Okay, here's your fun story. I'm putting Bishop Sheen's Life is Worth Living, the same one I'm putting on other Catholic stations. I'm going to put it on ours here at the terryandjesse.com. We'll have Bishop Sheen on our iPhone app and all the different apps. Well, here's the good news. Once I put it on for an hour a day for a year, and it cost us thousands and thousands of dollars, which we paid for it, and I was happy to do it, they got some complaints. And the complaints were, hey, why are you putting Catholic radio on our Protestant station? We don't want to hear Catholic radio. Get them off. Well, I got a call from management, and they said, look, this is that was the first time I got moved off the radio. Second time was just last month. But this time, they said, we can't take your money. So he said, go get your own station. Well, my story is, and I'll just be honest with you, I was instrumental in helping with Los Angeles, KHJ 930. Which is owned by Relevant now, but I went out and got some big donors at that time with Doug Sherman to raise the money to buy that station in Los Angeles, okay? So that's the story I'm sharing with you. But why am I saying that? Because that's the first time I was asked to leave the station. The second time, just last month with Jesse, we were asked, your services are no longer needed. Now, do you really think I'm going to go sit down after the golf course and relax after 40 years of evangelization? No! What I'm going to do right now is start up an internet radio. Why is that? Because that's how we're going to reach people with the gospel. Now, does that mean hiring new help? Yes. Engineers, marketing. Yeah, it's about $250,000 I got to come up with this year. What? Yes. And I feel like I'm jumping in the pool right now. Jumping in the pool half filled. That's where you come in. If you like what we're saying, give us a call at 877-526-2151 or go to terryandjesse.com. Make a donation because if you want to hear voices like Terry and Jesse, then support our program. I just got news not only that President Trump spoke at the pro-life conference, Walk for Life, but I've got news that my brother Jesse Romero has called in on the show. Jesse, welcome, my brother.
Terry, how are you, my friend?
Blessed. I'm happy, Jesse. Very happy. What's going on, buddy?
Watch my son wrestle.
Yeah.
Just a little family time out here watching his senior year. He's wrestling for Benedictine College.
Good.
I'm going to cheer him on. You know what's kind of cool?
Tell me.
The entire wrestling team,
the
back of their shirts of Benedictine College Wrestling, it has Psalms 144, verse 1. It says, blessed be the Lord, my rock, who prepares my hands for war and my fingers for battle. So it's going to be cool. There's going to be dozens and dozens of college wrestlers right now, and Benedictine College is going to have a big Bible verse on their back, all these kids. And, hey, by the way, that's the name of one of my books that I wrote on prayer.
Jesse, I'm excited.
And also,
Yeah.
I'm excited about we're re-energized as pro-lifers because
Absolutely.
this is the first time I think we've had friends in the White House before the executive office.
That's right.
But they were kind of timid behind the shadows. They're like, you know what, I support you guys, but, I don't want to get involved, do your thing. President Trump, who would have ever thought back in the 80s or 90s that this guy would be the most pro-life president in the history of the United States? Who would have ever thought?
Nobody.
I mean, only God can do something like this. And there's two great articles for people that want to read them on a Life site, on Life News. One is on Life, both are Life News. It says, give President Trump credit for protecting pro-life doctors and nurses from abortion. In other words, he's starting a new office within the HHS administration, protecting doctors and nurses who refuse to participate in abortions because they were unprotected by the prior administration. They were subject to getting fired and losing their job. And now President Trump says, nope, you sheriff in town, you're pro-life.
I love it.
Medicine, you're going to be protected by me. You don't have to cooperate. And another great article that says, President Trump launched his new HHS division to protect doctors and nurses who don't want to do abortions.
Jesse, we got a break. I want you to hang on. I want to continue this. This is such good news. Are you able to come back at the end of the break, brother?
I'm gonna play, yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll be right back with Jesse Barber. Terry Barber, God bless all of you. You're listening to the Terry and Jesse Show because you, our listener, has been supporting us. We now are on our own. We have our new internet radio. Yes, you heard me. We're going to put Bishop Sheen on the air. We're going to put Scott Hahn, Tim Staples. All of your favorite Catholic Answers gave us permission. We're going to put their hours on our new internet radio. If you want to get the radio for free, you have to have like a computer. You can stream it. Or if you have an app on your store, on your phone, smartphone, any kind of smartphone, Android or Apple, you can just download it for free. Or go to terryandjesse.com, terryandjesse.com to get yourself that app so that you can share it with your friends. If you really like what we're doing, and I think you do because people tell me, I've got over 1,000 people have emailed me when we were taken off the other station. If you want to make a donation, go to terryandjesse.com or call 877-526-2151 or call me on my cell phone. I'm available after the show, 661-972-7872, and I'd be delighted to chat with you. I talk to about 100 people a day, and this is what I live for. After 40 years of doing this, I'm fired up more and more about my Catholic faith than ever. And I would encourage you to go to terryandjesse.com or call 877-526-2151 to join us. And what we're going to do is we're going to proclaim the teachings of Christ. And there's no political correctness here. I bring in people like Steve Ray yesterday. I've got Dr. Ed Mazza, great friend of mine, PhD in history. He's going to give you the straight stuff. He's not going to be politically correct when it comes to teach about Islam. No, he's going to give you historically what went on.
Back to the Terry and Jesse Show. Want to join the conversation? Call 888-526-2151. Now here's Terry and Jesse.
Ask Trish where it is. Welcome back to the Terry and Jesse Show. Dr. Ed Mazza just arrived, but I'm in a good conversation with my brother Jesse. He's watching his son wrestling, and I think Jess, you're doing the right thing, man. You see what happens when you have a family first. Jess, you were talking about President Trump speaking at the Walk for Life, and that we now have the first time a president who's openly saying, hey, abortion's wrong. We're going to do something about that. So continue what you were telling us before the break, brother.
Terry, all I could say is that,
tell me,
objectively speaking, we have the most pro-life administration that we've ever had.
Yep.
I've read that we even have a more pro-life administration right now than Ronald Reagan.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree.
And so right now, God is giving us a reprieve as Christians, as Catholics and Protestants in this country, because as the Bible says in Proverbs 31, verse 8, we've got to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Proverbs 31, verse 8.
Right.
And I know that sometimes people may say, well, you know what? These are some bad times right now. Well, you know what? As Charles Dickens said in his book, The Tale of Two Cities, these are the worst of times, but these are the best of times, because times like this, when there's opposition and persecution, this is the time to become a saint, Gary. Hey, get Dr. Ed Mazza, man. I got to go.
And one more thing, Jesse, one more thing before I bring in Dr. Ed Mazza, because we're going to be talking about Islam, and you have been with me for years talking on this topic. And I just want to, before Dr. Ed comes in, I just want to ask you, Jesse, could you just share briefly the story that happened with you? This is such a fun story. Dr. Ed's not ready to come in, so I want to ask you, brother, tell that fun story, because you were trying to evangelize a Muslim. Come on, share it with us, brother.
Okay, I think the one you want talking about, it happened in 2007.
That's right.
West Bend, Wisconsin.
Yep, men's conference. Yep.
Men's conference, about 2,500 men were there. I get a taxi cab back to the airport. It's about a 30-minute drive. I'm wearing, as I typically wear when I preach, a big, large silver St. Benedict's crucifix around my neck with the miraculous medal.
Yeah.
The taxi driver's looking through the rearview mirror. He says, wow, that's a big crucifix. Starts asking questions about the Catholic faith. We engage in a conversation. He seems to know that he can navigate his way through the Catholic faith. Something, all right, this guy's a brother Catholic. He was a Caucasian guy.
Yeah.
But I did notice he had prison tattoos on his neck, prison tattoos on his arms. So I figured, okay, he's been in prison before, but he's probably on the road to conversion. So I asked him, hey, you got some good questions. Are you Catholic? And he says, oh, I used to be, but now I'm Muslim. And it kind of went south from there, Terry. I said, really? I said, well, why would you leave the Catholic Church and become a Muslim? So he entered into a 10-minute diatribe against our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Needless to say, I was every vein on my neck was popping out. My teeth were gritting. I mean, my lower nature kicked in.
Yep.
He was blaspheming the Lord Jesus Christ.
No.
Once he was done, I said, okay, now it's my turn. Now I got 10 minutes before I get to the airport.
Yep.
So I made a case for the sinfulness of Mohammed's life, his sexual flagrancy, his violence, his contradictions within his sayings, his trajectory of terrorism that he's left the world.
Yes.
He didn't like what I had to say.
I guess not.
He performed no miracles. I said he didn't rise from the dead. He didn't perform any exorcisms. He had no power against demons.
Yes.
He couldn't walk on water. He couldn't write. He never wrote nothing. People wrote for him.
Yes.
And so he didn't like what I had to say. Nonetheless, he said that he was going to kill me. Now, can you imagine? I'm a Catholic speaker being driven to the airport on a taxi, and the guy that I'm hiring says he's going to kill me because I'm a Catholic Christian. He says, so you're going to preach the gospel? That false religion? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to veer this car off the road and crash and kill you. And I said, I just asked him, so what happens when you die? He goes, I'm going to go straight to heaven with 73 virgins. And then I said, really? I said, dude, I'm going to tell you right now, you probably haven't heard it because you're not going to hear from many Catholics because they're afraid. You're going to go to hell if you kill us because you're going to die in mortal sin. Because what you're doing, you're a former baptized Catholic, and you're doing this with full knowledge and deliberate consent to the will, and it's the fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill. Go ahead, you throw it out, man. I'm ready to go. I went to confession this morning. I went to Mass this morning. I got the Eucharist. I'm good to go. I should have put that in contrition right there, real in silence because, I was getting kind of huffy, so I just asked the Lord to forgive me my venial sins at that moment.
Yes.
So I told him, come on, dude, let's go. Are you ready to die? I said, I'm ready to die. I got Jesus. Are you ready to die? Oh, that's right. You got Mohammed. He can't save you. He can't even save himself. I got Jesus. I'm ready to go. Needless to say, you know how the story ends.
Absolutely.
I'm here talking to you.
That's right.
I called his bluff. He was scared. The guy, I'm literally telling you, the guy, there was fear in his face because I told him, you throw this car off the road and you're going to hell, dude. I'm telling you right now, you have no Savior. You've insulted the only Savior of the world. Wow, this feels so good. I can say this on internet radio. I couldn't say this on other radio stations.
Right.
Get my hat slapped. But this is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And in the words words of Martin Luther King, free at last, free at last. Thank God, free at last.
Jess Romero calling in from the Midwest. Jess, thanks again. We'll look forward to having you back in the saddle on Monday, brother. Thanks for calling in.
Got it, bro. God bless you.
You got it, man. Well, this is the Terry and Jesse show at its best with storytelling. We just brought in Dr. Ed Mazza. Those who are on YouTube and Facebook who see Dr. Mazza, he's waving to you saying, hey, I'm back in the saddle with Terry and Jesse. Dr. Ed, I want to welcome you, but I also want to ask you first to set the stage, give us your background, and then let's get right into the issue of historical perspective on Islam.
Sure thing. Well, I'm a former New Yorker. Every now and then you'll hear me talk about my coffee.
Yeah.
But for the last 13 years, I've been teaching here at Azusa Pacific University, an evangelical Christian college, not actually Catholic, but they're very tolerant of me. And I teach medieval history, Renaissance and Reformation,
Yes.
ancient history. Basically, you name it, I teach it. And I have a DVD that's out. Matt Arnold did
right.
it on the Crusades.
We have it here.
I'm your man if you want,
Yeah.
want to talk history.
If you want that DVD, you can get that by calling 877-526-2151 or go to catholicrc.org. It's available. I think it's a $10 donation. Dr. Ed, what time of history is your expertise in? What's the period?
My PhD is in the Middle Ages,
Okay.
or the Christian Middle Ages, as they're known.
Mm-hmm. Now, just to set this record straight, I just want the facts.
Sure thing.
Nothing but the facts, Sergeant Friday. So let's go into Islam from just a perspective of the historical perspective. When did it come into the world? Who started it? What were the effects of Islam? And give us a little background on that, please.
Well, according to tradition, the founder of Islam was an Arab, Mohammed,
Yep.
and this would have happened in about the year 610.
Mm-hmm.
So Christianity had been around for 600 years
Yes.
before Muhammad started to proclaim Islam. Very soon thereafter, the inhabitants of the city where he started, Mecca, pushed him out, and he went to Medina, where he became a warlord with an army at his back. And so when you read the Quran, the holy book for Muslims, part of it is peaceful. That's what he was, a
Yes.
street preacher. And then part of it is violent. And that's when he was a general, and he killed people, he assassinated people, he sanctioned rape. His troops could rape people, they could take sex slaves. As a matter of fact, the Quran talks 5 times more about regulating slavery than it does about regulating your prayer life.
Can I ask you a question about the founder of the religion?
Yep.
Is it fair to say that morality speaking, in the sense of treating women, what was his perspective on women? Because today we're 21st century, but what has it changed, or is it still the same?
Well, again, the Quran and the Hadith,
Yes.
which are the other sources for Islam,
Right.
teach that a Muslim man
Yes.
can have 4 wives, and he can have as many sex slaves as he wants. In fact, over the course of the last 1,500 years or whatever, Islam is estimated to have had 200 million slaves, black, white, brown, in between. And obviously, the New Testament and Jesus Christ don't teach things like that. Islam teaches that God is not a father. Scott Hahn did a whole
He did.
series on that,
Yep.
about Abba versus Allah.
That's right.
And from its earliest years, Islam was spread by the sword. For example, Egypt used to be a Catholic country. Then it became Muslim. Israel used to be a Catholic country. It became Muslim. Syria used to be a Catholic country, but it was conquered by the Muslims. Spain, at one point, was a Catholic country that then became conquered by the Muslims.
Amazing.
So within 100 years of his death in 632, most of the Christian world woke up and found that it was Muslim.
Wow, we're going to take a time out on the Islam issue because one of our reporters is in Washington, D.C. His name is Jose, and he's live at the March for Life. Jose, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Hey, how you doing, my brother?
Too blessed to be stressed, brother. Tell me what you're seeing and what's going on there at the March for Life.
Oh, my gosh, it's a lot to see. There's a whole bell of people. I can't even count that high.
Well, tell me, is it true that President Trump spoke at?
Yeah.
What?
Took some pictures. He was there. He showed up, and so did Vice President Pence. Both of them showed up.
Wow. Well, Jose, let me ask you this: how many people are there? Is it crowded, or is it just how crowded is it, brother?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe about 500,000 people. I don't know. It's
Good.
a whole bell of people.
Yeah. Jose, I know who you are, brother, because you and I go back many years, and I love your zeal for the Lord. You go wherever the Lord takes you, and I want to thank you for just giving us a report from the March for Life and being our eyes out there. Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, I want to share one thing.
Sure.
There is a lot of young people out here.
Good. We need that. Good.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good sign. That's the future of the church. Okay, Jose, well, thank you for calling in. You're a good man. You have our iPhone app. Is that how you hear our show?
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody listening right now, go on your app store and type in Terry and Jesse show, and you can pick up, or actually go to terryandjesse.com, and it's easy to pick up our app on any mechanism you've got that's a phone, that's a smartphone. Jose, God love you. Thanks. And I'd like to see you at our Biblical Studies Conference coming up soon, the 24th of March. Be safe out there, okay, brother?
All right, my brother. Thanks.
God love you.
God bless you guys.
You got it, man.
I love you.
That was Jose out at the Washington, D.C. at the March for Life. Folks, isn't it exciting that he said young people are there? See, this is the future of the church. And that's why I have Dr. Ed Mazza here chatting with me, because he works with young people. He's a professor. And Dr. Ed, how important is it to inculcate historical truth to our young people? How important is that?
It's so important because when you send your kids off to college, there's an 85% chance that by the time they're finished, they're also not finished with college. They're finished with their Christian faith.
That's sad. Well, you know what the statistics is? Here it is, everybody. 82% of Catholic young people, by the time they're 23, which is probably around graduation, they're not practicing the faith. And that's sad. And that's why we have internet radio here at the Terry and Jesse Show. You've got men like Dr. Ed Mazza, Steve Ray, Terry Barber, Jesse Romero. Every day we're going to teach people the faith with passion and purpose. Let's get back to our topic now. That was great that Jose called in for the March for Life. Very important. My question now is we're kind of summarizing historically how Islam was started by Mohammed. And Dr. Ed, you have this PhD in history. What happened in the first couple hundred years? How did they promote the religion? Was it by great evangelization, preaching, or was it with something we call a sword?
Essentially the sword. Basically, people had three options.
Okay.
You could convert to Islam, in which case you would get privileges. You could be tolerated, in which case you would become a second-class citizen. Mm-hmm. As a number of restrictions were placed on you.
Okay.
You couldn't carry a weapon. You couldn't dress as well as a Muslim. If you went to a church, you couldn't ring the bells. If some Muslim guy likes your daughter, well, guess what? She's going to get married to him.
Wow.
And the penalty was death for trying to convert a Muslim. Wow. So you had, Catholicism is an evangelical religion. You go out and try to bring people to Christ. You can't do that when you live in a Muslim country.
And I'm a little confused. I just heard on the radio yesterday, I won't say where,
sure,
but a well-known Monsignor. And he said that Islam and Catholicism have something in common in regards to the just war theory, and with the innocent, when there's a war going on and the innocent, that they treat people with dignity. And I was scratching my head and I said, when I have Dr. Ed on the radio, no, you folks, this is not a conversation at Denny's. It is, but you're joining us here on the internet radio and all the stations that we're on. I mean, excuse me, Monsignor, I'm confused. Is that true, or is it a fact that we have a big difference in regards to the just war theory?
Let's just cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Muhammad is the example par excellence for a Muslim.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ is the example par
He's the model
for a Christian. Muhammad beheaded people. The Quran talks about chopping off people's limbs, you see.
Wow.
The Quran sanctions violence in a way that the New Testament never did, you see, or Jesus Christ never did. And so the fact that there are a lot of peaceful Muslims today, it means that they're not actually following strictly word for word what the Quran actually teaches. So it's disingenuous to say that the just war theory, which is based on Jesus Christ, has any semblance to what Muslim theory is on the subject.
Well, then let me ask you this. You say that Islam's been promoted through the sword. Somebody told me once, and this is, I don't know if it's fake news, Dr. Ed, but straighten me out on this one.
I will.
That St. Peter's Basilica was besieged by an invasion, and it was from the Muslims? Is that a true statement, or is that fake news?
I think it was the Mormons. No, I'm only kidding. No. People don't know this, but in the mid-9th century, which is the 800s, Muslim soldiers besieged Rome, raped, pillaged, and took whatever was not nailed down, even from St. Peter's Basilica.
Unbelievable.
Which is, by the way, why they have a big wall around it today.
Well, didn't they have a controversy about building a wall like us? I'm joking. Folks, you like our sense of humor, but Ed, that is actually factual. What we're saying is we're not joking about that.
That's true. And, the church waited a good 300 years before it responded with the Crusades.
Yes.
So it took Christian Europe took it on the chin for a long time. But yeah, even St. Peter's Basilica itself was attacked by the Muslims. And in years later, the Sultan in Turkey, in Istanbul, threatened that he was going to water his horses at the fountains of St. Peter's Basilica.
Wow. And
recently, ISIS, in their online magazine, yes, folks, ISIS has an online magazine, they put a ISIS banner on top of St. Peter's Basilica and talked about how they were going to drive a truck into it with explosives.
And what is it that Pope Benedict XVI did? I think it was 2005 or 6. He gave a famous speech in Germany, and a lot of people were upset because he was saying things like what you're saying.
Yes. In 2006, September, Pope Benedict, it was the 5th anniversary of 9/11, at Regensburg, where he used to teach, gave his famous Regensburg address, which I encourage everybody to go online and read it. Just Google Regensburg or Google Pope Benedict XVI on Islam. And basically what Benedict says is that he quotes a medieval Christian emperor who is criticizing Islam because it spreads by the sword. And God is supposed to be the God of reason, not the God of violence, you see. Pope Benedict was merely repeating what this medieval emperor had to say. And the next day, reliably, 2 different groups of people got all upset. First of all, militant Islamic groups around the world started actually doing violence and getting all aggravated.
Yes.
And the New York Times did not do violence, but they did verbal violence.
Wow.
They basically said that Pope Benedict was sowing discord, merely because Benedict was saying that religion has to be rational.
Yes.
And also that in the West, in America and in Europe, where people pride themselves on being so reasonable, we doubt the existence of truth, right? We tolerate women going for an abortion to destroy their child.
Right.
At the same time, we encourage women to go to the doctor and bring their child to birth.
Yes.
That's a logical contradiction.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So Benedict was saying God is the God of reason. He's the Logos, that Jesus is the Word made flesh. He's the Logos. Logos means reason. We have to act reasonably, not unreasonably.
Well said. We have a caller calling in. Is it Tracy in Las Vegas? Welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show. You're on the air with Dr. Ed Mazza.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. And Dr. Ed, I need some help. I send one of my sons to a Catholic high school, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Common Core world history, but we just recently, went through a semester with just information that you're talking about right now, touting. There's a whole chapter in the history that it's all about Islam, the glorification, the peace. There was also a documentary that was showing that the teacher showed to the class. It originally aired on PBS. I don't know if you're familiar with that either. But
yes, Empire of Faith, I think, is the name.
That's right.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, my husband and I watched it, and it was just, we're just like, we don't even know where to begin to start to refute everything. So I guess my question is, can you come up with some good resources for me and my family that we can be able to be more educated and be able to refute a lot of this information that's being touted? And obviously, it's kind of, to me, it's like an indoctrination, especially at a Catholic high school, where they're, everything you guys are talking about, it's like, oh my gosh, it's happening right for my eyes.
Well,
So
I'm going to let him answer the question, but I can tell you it's not in Lincoln Diocese of Lincoln, Nebraska. They wouldn't do that. Go ahead, Jess.
Okay, well, there's lots of sources to start with. I could just name some books and some DVDs and things. As Terry was pointing out earlier, and as I mentioned, Matthew Arnold and myself did a DVD on the Crusades, which goes into the history of Islam and the Christian response, and really sets a lot of the myths straight. So if you contact St. Joseph Communications here, they'd be happy to send you a copy. In addition to that, their Catholic Answers has some great historical resources.
Yep.
Christopher Check, who's the president of Catholic Answers.
Great man.
Steve Weidenkopf, I'm not sure how you would spell that, but he's a great historian. Diane Moczar, Moczar. She's got some great books on Catholic history. James Hitchcock.
He's a great man.
He's a university professor for years. He's been doing a lot of good writing on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a book about Islam and Christianity by Professor Madden. It's called A Short History of the Crusades. That's also an excellent resource. And, of course, Robert Spencer.
Spencer's a great man.
He's written a book, lots of books and material.
Ignatius Press, you can go and get his book.
Okay.
These are great resources. You see why I bring Dr. Ed in? I mean, he's got it all on his fingertips. He's an expert.
And I'll tell you, the reason why we find this in the Catholic schools is because there's a misunderstanding. Vatican II says that we respect and esteem Muslims.
Sure.
And that's true.
Yeah.
We
respect everybody.
We respect and esteem everybody.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that we respect and esteem Islam.
No.
It says we respect and esteem Muslims. And if I could buttress this, I would quote. There's a movie out in the theaters. I heard it's really good about Winston Churchill.
Oh, I want to see that movie.
And how he, almost single-handedly saved England from the Nazis. Well, here's a quote that from Winston Churchill: "Individual Muslims may show splendid qualities, but the influence of the religion paralyzes the social development of those who follow it."
Well said.
This is not Dr. Mazza's words. These are the words of Winston Churchill, one of the greatest leaders of the free world. "No stronger retarding force exists in the world. Far from being dead, Mohammedism is a militant and proselytizing faith. It has already spread throughout Central Africa, raising fearless warriors at every step." I could go on and on.
No, good point. Tracy, did that help also? All right, she's gone. Hey, we're out of time. We're just another minute or two. I want to remind everybody, this is only our 4th day doing internet radio. I just want to give everybody, we've got about 50 stations across America who want to have our show on their air. We're working with them. If you live in an area where you say, hey, I want to have it on my Catholic station, call them and say, hey, can we get Terry and Jesse? It's absolutely free. We give our free feeds to anybody who will play our program. That's how you can do it. Also, I want to remind you, we're building our studio. We're building a whole network to get this message out to people. We're going to be planning to put Scott Hahn's material on our website, on our actual iPhone app and your other devices where you can be streaming these recordings and learning more about your Catholic faith. And that's all going to be free to be streamed. It's amazing that that's what we're working on. Catholic Answers is going to be on our live app also. We got permission from Christopher Check, the president of Catholic Answers. We're networking with everyone because we want to get this message out to people, which is the teachings of Christ. I want to also thank Dr. Ed Mazza for coming. Also, if you want Dr. Ed Mazza to speak at your parish, just call me, 877-526-2151. I'll give you his number. Yeah, I will. It's the Terry and Jesse Show. Don't hesitate to call us, 877-526-2151. If you want to get Dr. Mazza's DVD on history on Islam, you're welcome to pick it up. Also, if you can give us a little donation money, we're starting this internet radio. We've hired a lot of people. We do need monthly donors to support this great mission here at the terryandjesse.com. Just go and type in on your computer, terryandjesse.com, and you'll get all the good information on what we're doing. We want to thank all of you who listen and are fired up about the Catholic faith because we want to convert America, and we're starting in a humble way with our internet radio this week with your support. If you like what you hear and you want to support it, call me on my cell phone even. I'll talk to you. 661-972-7872. May God richly bless you and your family. Jesse will be back on Monday. God love you.